Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Dablow, Interim Executive Director for the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to Through Our Eyes, Bloom Teens Talk Compact Protections with Their Parents, exploring when knowing about the compact could have made a difference, part of the Commission's 2026 webinar series. In this recorded program, we'll explore how awareness of the Interstate Compact on educational opportunity for military children, often referred to as the Compact, can shape the experiences of military-connected students and their families. We are grateful for our collaboration with the National Military Family Association, known as NMFA, and Bloom, a program of NMFA. For those of you who aren't familiar with Bloom, this organization was founded by and for military teens to elevate their authentic voices and lived experiences. This webinar was designed as a follow-up to the powerful stories shared by Bloom teens during the Commission's 2025 annual business meeting. During that panel, the students described the academic challenges they faced as their families moved from duty station to duty station, losing access to programs such as Gifted and Talented, being required to retake classes they had previously completed, and encountering significant differences in curriculums from school to school. These gaps often left them feeling behind their civilian classmates and unsure of how to navigate each transition. But one of the most significant takeaways from the ABM is that most families didn't know about the Compact at the time these issues occurred. Even though the Compact was designed to support students during transitions, that lack of awareness meant they weren't able to access the protections when they needed them most. The goal of this session is to better understand when and how military families prefer to receive information about the Compact. For this project, each Bloom teen sat down with their parent or guardian to record a candid conversation about their family's PCS experiences. The Commission developed several questions for these conversations, but each family began with one fundamental question. Have you heard of or were you aware of the Compact before today? The responses reinforced that broad, consistent outreach about the Compact remains essential for families and school personnel. From there, parents reflected on the timing, sources, and communication channels that would have helped them most, whether when receiving orders, during processing, while researching new schools at their next assignment, or through community resources. When NMFA and MIC3 collaborated to assign this task to the Bloom teens, families were encouraged to keep their dialogue authentic and honest, focusing on awareness gaps, lived experiences, and what support they wish they had known about earlier. These insights will help the Commission determine how to more effectively communicate the Compact's protections, so families know what support exists before they encounter challenges. These insights will help the Commission determine how to more effectively communicate the Compact's protections so that families know what supports exist before they encounter challenges. Over their K-12 educational journey, military students experience an average of 5 to 8 school transitions. Yet far too many families remain unaware of the tools and protections, primarily the Compact, that are available to them. Hearing directly from parents helps us identify persistent communication gaps and design outreach efforts that meet families where they are. This recorded webinar is just the beginning of the Commission's broader collaboration with Bloom and NMFA, as we work to expand awareness and empower military families across their PCS process. Now, let's turn to the conversations recorded by the Bloom teens and their families. We invite you to listen closely to these stories and consider how each insight can help us better support military-connected students worldwide.
My family has PCS'd 6 different times, and my children have been to 6 different schools.
As a family, we have made 6 PCS moves, but we have moved 7 houses. Between my 3 children, between preschool, elementary school, middle school, and high school, they have attended 15 schools.
My husband and I have made about 16 PCS moves, but with the kids, it's been about 13 PCS moves. My older daughter went to 13 schools and Chloe has gone to 12.
I say 10. And how many schools have we attended?
11.
11. Okay.
Let's see. I believe it's 4 as a family. They have attended 5 schools altogether in 4 different school districts because we've lived in one place a few different times.
Since I was born, we have moved 8 times and I have attended 6 different schools.
No, I was not aware, not until you got involved with Bloom and did that panel.
No, I have not heard of it.
Yes, I've heard of the compact before today. However, it wasn't in a school setting. It was through my child being involved in the Bloom activity that I heard it being mentioned.
I was not.
I was aware of the compact only because I had an issue with getting you the education that you needed when we transferred schools.
No, we have not ever been told about the compact.
I was aware of it. Yep.
I have been previously aware of the compact. It was something that I learned about on my own as I was researching military service organizations. And then through my internship and job at the National Military Family Association, I did become more familiar with it.
Yes, I would say one of the most difficult issues that I had was having a child, Lily, who was in gifted and talented education in 1st grade, and then in 3rd grade we moved to a new school district, and I had a lot of trouble enrolling her into the gifted and talented program, and we had to advocate for her to the administration and to her teachers, and we had to make appeals and to try to get her in the gifted and talented program. And when that didn't succeed, I started doing a lot of research and looking into my rights that I had as a military spouse and as a military parent. And after a lot of legwork, I eventually found out about the compact. I brought the compact to the school, and the school told me they didn't think that they needed to abide by the compact. So I did more research and found out that they did have to abide by the compact, and they eventually did let me put Lily in gifted and talented testing in the new school district and did allow her into the program. But this was very stressful as we were already dealing with all of the stresses of the move, just recovering from a very long deployment, and then trying to get her enrolled into the right programs was just an added stressor to everything else that we were already dealing with.
And at first they only let me into the English part of the Gifted and Talented program, and it took 2 extra years to let me into the math program just because of the curriculum change.
We did have one issue with credit transfer, but it was resolved to our satisfaction, but it was in middle school, so it wasn't high impact like high school credit, but it did present a small issue when we moved from Georgia to Texas.
Yes, when we moved from Alaska to Virginia, my older daughter was a rising senior, and when she started high school in Kansas and then did several years in Alaska, and then we were going to do her senior year in Virginia. When we got to Virginia, she did not have the required state standard guidelines of what she needed to graduate, and that really hurt her a lot. Some of the credits that she already had, they only accepted half a credit instead of the full credit, and she didn't have the standard Virginia history. She had Alaska history, or she learned in Kansas. That really hurt her a lot, so it put her behind, and she actually had to stay a junior and could not move on to be a senior. She would not have graduated. So that made her feel pretty bad about herself, and that was kind of a fight with us and the school. And I think had we known about the compact, it would have really helped her, and it would have helped us, and it would have helped her, it would have helped the school. It would have made things a lot easier to transition.
I think in general, like getting the classes you want,
very hard. I mean, I've done like 5 theater classes despite not being interested in theater at all, but it's just because it's open and all the classes you want to take are full, so you miss out on a lot of opportunities that otherwise have been great for you. Yes.
We did need to use the compact when we were moving from one high school to another in terms of credits. One school, didn't want to put credits on my son's academic transcripts because he didn't fully finish the class, but the school we were going to had a different schedule layout, so he wasn't going to be able to take an equivalent class. And without the compact and the support of that school, he would have potentially lost 6 months of an AP Science class simply because the schools had different schedules and he couldn't finish it.
Yes, most certainly. Especially when you come from a school with less rigorous academic standards to a higher or harder district, we definitely needed help, just finding equivalent classes and getting credit for what they've already done.
Yeah, I know. In one instance, like one of our children had to take summer class to catch up to get on the right curriculum cycle.
Yeah. Especially from big moves like Okonos moves coming back to the States. It didn't help that it was during COVID time either, but we did lose a lot of credit that year.
In my opinion, the best time to tell parents about the compact is actually not going to be right before they PCS. That seems to be a really popular answer that I keep hearing is, have it be around PCS, have school liaisons, tell parents as they're leaving, as they come in. Personally, I find all the information that's thrown at you during PCS season to be incredibly overwhelming. There's so much going on. There's so many other parts of our life that I have to manage and learn things and find out, switching TRICARE regions, changing doctors, housing. It's just such an overwhelming time. I personally think it would be more beneficial to military families to focus on the compact being a more everyday presence.
The best time would have been during the sponsor transitioning, doing the paperwork with the TMO, the Traffic Management Office. I think that would have been the best time.
I really wish that I would have known about the compact before I started moving around with young children. Prior to having kids, I don't ever remember receiving any sort of information or knowledge about the compact. So once we had children and we started moving every 1 to 2 years and putting them in different schools, it would have been really nice to know that the compact existed and what my rights were as a parent in regards to the compact.
22 years in the military, and no one ever told me or briefed me about the compact, my rights, never gave me any sort of pamphlet or information that would have made our PCS moves or transitions to different schools for our kids any easier or better. They did not provide the materials and the know-how to actually, use what rights that we have that the compact gives us.
The most effective time or way to learn about the compact is probably through the military school liaison officer. Through each of our moves, I have made the effort to reach out to the school liaison officer. None of them has ever told me about the compact, because this would have been really useful for me since one of my child has an IEP for gifted and another one has an IEP for learning disability.
And anytime you move or PCS, you typically will always contact the school liaison person on base, the base that you're moving to. So I think that's probably the most helpful, is having them be really aware of your options. You would contact them to know the schools that they're going to go to or their school options in the area. I think maybe some sort of pamphlet that the school liaison officer can hand you, or something that's in like the welcome packet when you move in. Just things about the schools in the area your options, the compact, the guidelines of it. I think it's really important for us to learn about, and would really help us out a lot.
I think giving information to schools is also a big part. I know there's a bunch of schools that you'll have to contact. I think just starting with the schools on base will probably be the most beneficial, because then you start with elementary school, so like young parents will have their kid having been on this compact for years rather than them knowing in the middle of their high school year.
Yeah, I think learning your options and knowing what you can and can't do from the start, from elementary school, is so much better. So you know what you can do every time you move, rather than just learning about it in high school or after they've already graduated, which would have really helped.
Yeah, I think one thing for sure is to ensure that the information about the contact, especially the point of contact at the destination school district, is specified on the service members' orders. I know, at least in my case, in 24 years on active duty Army, I have never seen any information about compact on my orders, and that would be a great place to start.
I think a reminder of the compact as part of the PCS process or right before you PCS would be really helpful. I knew about the compact and I didn't have to use it when I first learned about it. I just thought it was really interesting and something to remember for future. I did have to use the compact in one particular move, and I was able to like print out some verbiage from it and bring it to the school to get what I needed for my kids' resources. So it was super helpful at that time, but in the rush of getting ready and moving, packing things up and then unpacking again at the next place, it was a lot to remember. So it took me a minute to just reflect and think, okay, this is the way around this hurdle or over this hurdle. So a reminder about the compact in the move process, it would be really helpful.
I first learned about MIC3 and the compact through my own research online. I was looking for military service organizations that I could potentially use as resources and, looking for internships and careers as I was finishing my own education, and it came up on Google.
First learned about the MIC3 from NMFA. They were doing a promotion for it, at the time, Education Revolution, to teach parents and educators about the compact. And I was doing some volunteer work for them at the time, and it was something that they were talking about, and I had never heard of it before. And my kids were really young at the time, I think just entering their school age. And so it didn't seem as relevant to me at the time, but like I said before, it was something I noted for myself for future use, because I could see how it could be relevant in future.
No, not about the compact, because I wasn't aware. But in my personal opinion, the military liaisons haven't been as helpful, and I personally found them to be disconnected with the district. For once, I remember I acquired help from a military liaison with the whole application process, and unfortunately it complicated the process because she wasn't in sync with the school district and made the entire process a lot more cumbersome.
I have spoken to school liaisons about the compact, but that was definitely more recent, and I don't personally feel like they are the most common place that I've heard about it. You really only come into contact with school liaisons, in my experience, in the beginning when you're first enrolling in schools, and if it doesn't come up then, that's really the only time I really speak to them, at least in my experience. I have more communication with the schools my children attend than I do the school liaisons on base. Every week we're getting, emails and updates from the school. I really think that focusing on school administration that has military children in their population would be a really fantastic place to put it. In my experience, communication with the school is just so much more prevalent than communication with the school liaison on base.
In my personal life, I have not. We are a Coast Guard family, which means a lot of times we are not necessarily living in really high military areas. So we're not necessarily always like in purple ribbon schools or such. So I haven't actually spoken to a liaison specifically about the pact.
I personally wish that schools understood that when military kids move to different schools, they each have different educational needs, and they're also going through a big emotional change as well. So I wish that schools were more sensitive to helping kids acclimate to the new school environments, and also making sure that the kids aren't shortchanged in regards to what programs that they are put into. And I also wish they would take more time to match students with teachers that would help them transition more effectively and efficiently to their new environments.
I agree with everything you said. The biggest thing was moving between states that had different types of curriculum. Example, we moved from Virginia to Maryland, and Maryland's a Common Core state. And when we moved there, they gave our kids no tools, no time to catch up, and did not do really anything to help them adjust to the new requirements of the curriculum. So we would love for some sort of bridge between the different states and the different requirements between schools and school districts for our PCS move.
Military children are one of those that falls through the crack when it comes to school results and moving between school systems. Because America being the way it is, all of the states, even between counties within the state, they have a slightly different school system. It may not seem like a big thing, but as you're moving across states or across county lines or across the world, all this comes into play. And I wish that the schools will also understand that military children don't really have a good control over their schedule. A lot of times, their military parent may be deploying or may have to go away for a long training, and we have no choice but to take breaks the time that we take a break. Maybe it may not be during a holiday, maybe it not be during spring break or summer vacation. But again, military families have no choice. In fact, before this move, my kid has never finished a school year out at any school because of the timing of the moves. I wish school would understand things like this.
I think a big thing that schools don't quite understand is the gaps. Every state has a different time that they learn a certain part of history. Let's say you learn, the American Revolution in 6th grade. Alaska, you learn that in 8th grade, or vice versa. And so there's so many gaps of these kids. They go to a different state and they've already learned this part of history that they're now going to be tested on, but they didn't have the opportunity to learn at their previous school. So every state's going to be different on when they learn something or when they're doing something. And so moving creates these gaps, and every time they move, there's more of a gap that they're missing out on. And they're required to know it, but they've never had the opportunity to learn it. So it's kind of unfair and really hard for these kids to catch up, because that's just not, they just haven't had the chance to learn something.
I think I talk to my friends all the time, and they're like, oh, how'd you not know about that? We learned that in 7th grade. And I'll just have to be like, hey, I wasn't there 7th grade. And then in maybe 9th grade, 10th grade, I was supposed to having to know this in a test, and I'm like, I didn't learn this. How's it my fault that I didn't learn this? And therefore I'm gonna get a bad grade. So it's very hard.
Yeah, I think the gaps is a really hard one that schools just don't quite understand.
Yeah, I think for sure, if the school district is in proximity to larger military installations, the school district superintendents really need to be aware and of all the resources and the population of the student body so that they can rightly tailor to the needs of the military children and be able to communicate that, the resources that the district has as the families are coming in. I think there has been lack of communication from all the districts that we've been part of, and because of that, we've never been aware of the program. So better communication, better awareness would be very helpful, at least as a starting point.
And maybe more clear instructions on how to go about getting that help. I would have loved to have had this information up to this point. So a clear instruction on where we can find that help would be really great. As a mom who usually is the one in charge of finding the appropriate schools at a new location, to have that readily available.
I think that schools, particularly ones that don't have huge military student populations, are not necessarily attuned to the impact that it might have to be moving so often. I think the small things that affect the experience for military kids get overlooked. I think one in particular that always stands out to me is the sports. So when people come in August and they've already done tryouts for fall sports, it's not a big deal to schools to just say, sorry, you missed tryouts, but it is a big deal to the kids. And so educating schools about those small things, just kind of corroding the experience for military kids, are a really good education for school systems and schools in particular.
There are many things that I wish schools understood about military kids. Aside from the constant moving and sports being an issue, I think there's smaller things that are overlooked really often, especially once the kids hit high school. It's really challenging to see other children succeed in ways where they're being rewarded for, being in a program long term. And, my kids jumped into the school junior year, so they don't even have a chance to compete or compare, for scholarships for being on a specific track for 4 years. Some schools don't offer the same tracks, so even if, they're taking the similar classes, it doesn't look like they've been doing it for that long. Students often need teacher recommendations, and it can be harder for military kids to figure out which teacher would give the best recommendation if they haven't known teachers for the full 4 years. It's also challenging in terms of their transcripts and college applications. If you're in student council for 2 years at one school, that's often voted on by kids in the school, and it can be really difficult for a military kid to jump into that same program, that same activity when the children at the school don't know them. I just was really surprised as my oldest graduated last year how many advantages children who had been in the high school for 4 years seem to have over the military kids who came in a little bit later. Another really hard thing is the schedule changes. Moving from a high school with a traditional full year schedule where you're taking all your core classes throughout the entire school year, to then move to a school that does the block schedule where you only have half your classes for half the year, really just screws with schedules badly. And I worry about learning loss for military kids when they are switched from schedules like that. And that's not necessarily something that I think civilian children come into contact with.
Just that I think sometimes with the move, transition is toughest on your kids, especially the higher age kids, high school, middle school. That's a tougher transition in my experience with 4 kids. So I think it would have been nice to, especially for military families who are not living on base, it would be great to have resources available, to maybe have references, support groups of contact, prior military members that are in the vicinity, to help with that transition, to figure out what schools are good, communities to rent or buy, things of that nature, resources that the school that you're going to that could help, counselor who are trained to deal with military life, transition, adaptation, that would have been all useful.
Thank you, Mom, for sitting here and doing this interview with me
Oh,
today.
no problem. Thank you.
Thank you,
so
my
much.
secret.
I think it just having the schools know the compact, know the guidelines, what they have to follow. Us knowing the guidelines, what our options are, what we can fight for, and what maybe we have to let go a little bit. But I think transitions will be a lot easier if everybody knows about it. It's not going to be a fight against the school, because sometimes it feels like you're fighting against the school, trying to just make things fair. If they're aware and they have to follow these guidelines and we're aware, then transitions are a lot more seamless for these kids. I think overall, the compact, learning about it now, there's still a lot of things I think would be more helpful for high schoolers, especially moving in high school and credit transfers. That's a really hard one, but I think this is a really great start. Just us learning about it, because we still have more moves in our future. So knowing about it now, I think it will be really helpful.
Yeah, even though I have like 1 year of school left, I think it will be still beneficial just knowing now, rather than me graduated.
Yeah, and word of mouth also helps too. So us being able to help other military families, I think is good too.
Nothing in particular. I just hope that people get the word out, and I hope that I love that there is a liaison at every state level, and I just want people to know about it and to use the service as much as possible. It's just like a lot of other things for military families. The resources are there, and making sure that people know that the resources are there and ready to be used is definitely the hurdle. And I hope people learn about it and use it.
As compact commissioners and ex officio representatives, you see firsthand the challenges military children experience as they move alongside their families. Knowing how and when military families prefer to receive information about the compact is one of the most important factors in ensuring they can access the resources intended to support them. Your role in sharing key compact tools and doing so at the right moments in the family's transition make a meaningful difference. In listening to the families in the videos, we heard honest, heartfelt stories from military children and their parents. Their experience sheds light on the realities of transitioning across state lines and the barriers they encountered along the way. Hearing directly from parents helps us identify persistent communication gaps and shape outreach efforts that meet families where they are. These insights guide us in strengthening the support we provide to every military-connected student. One of the clearest themes to emerge from these conversations is that we can always do more to expand communication and outreach. Many families shared that they did not learn about the compact until after their children had experienced an educational issue. This tells us that awareness must begin before the PCS process is underway. By engaging the Commission's ex officio organizations, partners, and state-level networks, we can speak directly with families, hear their stories, and work collectively to move the compact forward, ensuring its protections reach those who need them. We extend our greatest appreciation to the Bloom families for their willingness to share their stories, and to Bloom and NMFA for partnering with MIC3 on this project. Their voices are essential to helping us understand where improvements are needed and how to better serve military families. Thank you for taking the time to listen closely to their stories today. As we continue to elevate awareness of the compact and support military families, Your engagement plays a critical role. Together, we can pave the way for military-connected students to ease their educational transitions. Thank you.